So this session is community benefits delivered. We're going to hear from Andy Dorr. Andy's the Head of Procurement at Scottish Prison Service, a friend of Scotland Excel. Andy's presented at least one of our conferences before and attended others, so welcome back, Andy. We're going to hear from Ross Hamill. Ross Hamill is the Community Benefits Manager of McTaggart Construction Limited. Folks, you know all about community benefits. Community benefits are a key component in meeting the obligations under the Sustainable Procurement Duty, and they have contributed to a range of national and local outcomes related to employability, related to skills, and tackling inequalities by focusing on underrepresented groups. In this session, we'll hear from the Scottish Prison Service with regards to community benefits with upcoming building projects, and McTaggart Construction Limited, who will share some real-life examples of community benefits delivered through their involvement in the Scotland Excel new build framework. I'm delighted to hear that. So 10 minutes each. I'm going to hand over to Andy, who will now do a presentation. Thank you. Andy.
Thanks very much, Stephen, and glad to be back at the conference. I prefer being face-to-face as we normally do, but it's better than nothing to be in a virtual environment. So thank you to you for the introduction, and thanks to Julie for the invitation to speak for a few minutes today on the subject of delivering community benefits within the Scottish Prison Service. I'm going to try and share content, so hopefully this will work. So I should be sharing screens.
That's fine now, Andy.
Good, thank you. Right, so I'm going to speak for a few minutes on delivering community benefits within the Scottish Prison Service, and I'm going to do this with a specific reference to an ongoing build that's taking place at the moment, the Women's National Facility in Stirling, Bridge of Allen area. So as you said, I'm Head of Procurement, Andy Dorr at the Scottish Prison Service, but I'm going to start by just saying I'm just the messenger here, really. Lots and lots of heavy lifting takes place to deliver community benefits on a project of this scale, and I'm quickly going to mention Gordon Wright at Stirling Council, Jim Johnson and Caitlin Quinn at Morrison Construction, and my colleague Stephen Riley, who's the Senior Project Manager on the build itself. So I'm moving swiftly on. An overview of the approach taken to community benefits. Well, SPS is a national agency. We've got a remit for Scotland, but we tend to target a specific group, as you might expect. So our theme around community benefits is those community benefits that are relevant to those in or leaving custody. So that is always a theme that we will promote actively. Second thing is community benefits can only be delivered in conjunction with the local authority. We're delivering a project in this case, Stirling Council's backyard. And so it's very important that we work closely with the local authority, as we've done throughout this. Now, local authorities tend to have priority groups, and we will seek synergy in terms of the groups targeted. But it's very easy to find commonality here with disadvantaged groups and those almost furthest away from the labour market being in the area of common ground. Third thing, we would always say, I think it's commonly understood that with community benefits, the key is to signpost early and throughout both the pre-procurement and procurement procedure. And with the Women's National, we've done just that. With Stirling Council, Gordon and his team being involved at a very early stage of this and throughout the process. Fourthly, evaluation. I think it's crucial that community benefits form part of your BPQR evaluation, and a material part, not necessarily a huge part. In this case, we've made it part of the quality score, and it's a material element of it, so it could make the difference between who wins and doesn't win the contract in the end, and it helps focus minds in the evaluation itself, the tender evaluation. And lastly, rather important that we track outcomes. Now, there's lots of ways to do this, up to and including the use of things such as the TOMS model, which actually looks to monetize the output from and the outcomes. But actually, the other extreme is the people stories. The narrative is often more powerful. So that's our general approach. To bring it onto the Women's National Facility, so that's a project that's being built at the moment. This photo was taken very recently, actually. So what you can see there is that the large footprint is the existing site of HMP Cornton Vale, some of which has been demolished, and the buildings literally coming out of the ground is the new Women's National Facility. Now, the project's been delayed, like pretty much every construction project in Scotland in the last year because of COVID. but phase 1, the lion's share of the project, is now due for completion in April 2022, and I'm pleased to say we're on target to do that. A couple of quick things to note. Estimated expenditure of about 90% will go to Scottish contractors, about 50 Scottish contractors. SME spend, we're anticipating about 40% going to SMEs. And I also wanted to mention supported businesses. There's been a significant partnership with BASE, Alistair Kerr and the BASE members, including hosting a dedicated Meet the Buyer event for supported business and social enterprise. But for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to focus on the core community benefit outcomes. So I'm not going to go through all.
Andy, sorry, can I interrupt you a second?
Yes.
Can I confirm you are moving your slides on? It seems there might be a technical issue.
I am, so I don't know what you can see at the moment, Stephen.
So we're still on the first slide, Sandy. So
right.
as long as you're moving it, then there's nothing we can do, unfortunately, at this point.
I've advanced them 3 times now, so apologies, everybody. But
no need for you to apologise, Andy. We'll obviously share the slides with everyone afterwards. So it's working for some people, but not all. So apologies.
All right, apologies, everybody. Well, use your imagination. There was an image of the prison build that I was talking about just now, and my next slide, I'll describe it. There's a range of the partners in a meeting room. Okay, so this slide is simply to say that we have a range on the screen here of contractual obligations. Now, SPS has chosen to use CITB's model for community benefits. So this project's Band 9. It's projects valued £50 million and above. And the slide shows that we're already well on target, or indeed ahead of target, to achieve all the range of work experience, training, job outcomes, etc. under the contract. My next slide is about, which you can't see, but it is about partnership working. And I've chosen to pick a couple of examples of partnership working. These are not things that are prescribed by the contract, but they're things that Morrison Construction proposed to deliver. The first one is a partnership with Reanimate, as they're now known. It's a local charity in the Stirling area, operating an animal sanctuary. So this charity works with vulnerable young adults and tries to develop socialization and communication skills with the young adults working with animals in the care of Reanimate. And there's been a range of outcomes. You can't see the slides, so apologies for that. What I'm pleased about is that the volunteering and the delivery of materials and labour to support the charity has been very beneficial to it, but the relationship with Reanimate goes way beyond the project itself. I'll come back to that briefly in a second. The second example of partnership working I picked out was the Morrison awarding a contract for providing the canteen on site to a community interest company called Community Focus Scotland. So that organisation employs locally from disadvantaged groups, and they're running the canteen on site. Interesting example because it transcends construction. So both of these examples are about partnership working that goes beyond the project itself, and indeed it goes beyond construction, and I think that's really quite important. There's also already lots of examples emerging of a relationship forming beyond Morrison, but forming beyond the project, and work that they can do with these groups in the community further down the line. So I think they illustrate the point quite well. On the next slide, again, you can't see, but is the impact on people. And what I've done in this slide is I picked out a couple of examples here that I think really demonstrate the people stories that emerged from community benefits on the project. First one is a chap called Nathan, who was undertaking an apprenticeship when COVID struck, and he was made unemployed. And Morrison's identified a potential fit with one of their subcontractors, and in the image we've got Johnston Joiners, who've taken Nathan on initially as a labourer, and now he's entering a full apprenticeship with Johnston Joiners. So what this has done is it's had a profound impact on this young chap's life, and so a very important individual story, I think. The second image is a picture of Jim and Caitlin from Morrison's carrying food products. They are actually delivering food parcels to the families of some of the women in Cornton Vale Prison. This is a good example because it's funded by a community engagement group that Morrison primed with some money at the outset of the project, and the engagement group allocates funds collectively. So Wise Group, Morrison, Stirling Council and others decide where to invest the funds. And the impact of COVID has obviously been huge on all of us, but if you can think for a minute about what it must be like to be in prison during this time, it's lockdown upon lockdown. So the impact on the women and the in custody and on their families from the delivery of food parcels can't really be overstated. And it's symbolic of the importance of caring for vulnerable groups in the community. And also, I think, to be perfectly honest, just an act of kindness. So I selected it for that reason. I'm advancing my slides, which I presume you can't see. The next slide, my penultimate slide, is about the Pathway to Employment programme that Morrisons are going to deliver. Now, this has been held up somewhat because of COVID. We're fine with that. We understand why that is the case. This is a partnership with Wise Group. Now, SBS, we are a prison service. We're not an employment agency. We don't set out to be, and we think it's very healthy for contractors to work with experts in this area. In this case, it's Wise Group, who has a track record of mentoring and supporting those with convictions back into employment. So the Pathway to Employment programme is designed to support people with convictions to progress towards employment. I'm very confident that it will deliver a number of results, and I've got assurances from Morrison that even when the project's delivered, they'll continue to work on and develop this Pathway to Employment. So I'll be very happy to update you on some of the outcomes from that down the line. That was my penultimate slide. The last slide is simply to say thank you for the opportunity to relate some of the things we're doing on the Women's National Facility, the approach we take to community benefits, and I'm very happy to have Q&A on this when the opportunity arises. So thank you, Stephen.
Andy, thank you very much for that, and thank you for overcoming that technical challenge. It's a Teams issue. And Ross will go ahead and present his, and if there's an issue, we'll pause, and one of the team will present as well. So apologies, folks, but Andy, 10 out of 10 for the descriptive style of your presentation, and we look forward to actually seeing it to see if it comes out to the same as we all imagine. So thank you.
Yeah, I've sent the slides on, Stephen, so people, if delegates wish to see them, they're very welcome to. So.
Thank you, Andy. They'll be shared on the Academy after the conference. Thank you. Ross, I'm going to hand over to you now, Ross.
No problem. Brilliant. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great stuff. Brilliant. Great stuff. So I'm Ross Hamill. I'm the Community Benefit Manager with McTaggart Construction and the overall McTaggart Group. The McTaggart Group is split into 6 different divisions, and I'll come on to how much of an asset that is for us in terms of delivering community benefit as a whole. So for us, we decided that our involvement and commitment was growing at quite a rapid pace since about 2018. So that we decided to create an identifiable brand as part of the company to represent our community activities. And as the business grew, so did our commitment grow, and we now have a dedicated community benefit team which we head up. And it's a way for us to work with our clients to easily identify the opportunities which we are working in partnership to create in the communities which we're helping build. And we feel as though it's a huge asset for us to actually, create bespoke programs with our clients that can really change lives in the areas that we're helping build. So since 2018, we've had a lot of success. We've created over 200 jobs, just under 300 work experience placements, in which we can proudly promote that we are able to progress 1 in 5 of every work experience placement to full-time employment or an apprenticeship on a McTaggart site, and that's actually 4 higher than the Scottish average at the minute. And we can do this through working with our supply chain and giving each individual the encouragement, as I said, because we have a dedicated team. That's a crucial component for us in successful community benefit delivery. And I have to say, this quite simply isn't just an approach, as the last presenter said. This isn't just simply an approach to meet any KPIs or fulfill a contractual obligation. This is about actually being part of our business model, part of what we do as a company. Yes, we will deliver high quality social housing, but here's an extra that you get. Here's how we can make a real impact, a real long-term, significant impact in the communities in which we're building. So much so that on average, we can promote the fact that on average, we are promoting between 148 and 240% complete in all community benefit KPIs in the last 2 years. So we're really proud of what we've been able to achieve, particularly through the COVID year. So community benefit in social housing. Community benefit, social value, community wealth building are common enough terms. We've all heard them, we're all familiar with them. But for us in social housing, we follow 4 main themes, in which are jobs and training, community development and support, education and curriculum, and supply chain support and development. We create a bespoke approach to each of the 4 themes, very much focusing on local. We are a social housing builder. We build particularly in areas where traditionally housing associations have got either a base or a strong presence. So very much focusing on local aspect, creating local partnerships with local employability providers, local organisations, and very much taking the time to know the areas in which we are making significant change, so that we can make tangible benefits, tangible improvements to the local community. So when we're talking about social value, for us, it's about creating a programme that creates value for the client. For value for the client, we mean jobs for customers, understanding the local community, supporting the local community, and looking at, wherever possible, long-term sustainable impact. Value for the contractor. Well, yes, has to be community benefit, but there has to be a value for the contractor to deliver it. For us, it's very much about not just the corporate social aspect of creating an identifiable brand, but how do we use it? How do we use community benefit to grow our supply chain, to grow our workforce for tomorrow, to actually bring real benefit to us as a company and for our partners. And then, of course, value for the community. In social housing, we very much, because it moves at such a fast pace, we very much see ourselves as visitors to particular communities. So that's why we take particular time to understand the community, to look at where we have real long-term legacy, whether that's job sustainability for the local community or coming into some of the community projects, which I'll come into in some of the other slides. For us, there is a huge other side to social value, very much looking at diversity and inclusion. You know, I'll come on and tell some of the stories about some of the young people that we managed to recruit through our jobs and training programme. We aim, wherever possible, to have direct contact with our clients' customers, and it's always something we've particularly struggled with. But it's a real key for us to successful community benefit delivery. Having that direct contact with the people that we're specifically targeting these opportunities for is crucial, and it, you know, it is the key to success. Procurement and our supply chain partnerships is key to delivery of community benefit, and it's something that we wouldn't be able to have achieved the numbers if we didn't have involvement through procurement all the way through to each level of supply chain involvement. Tips for successful delivery before I come on to some of the kind of case studies. Again, partnerships. using multiple sites and multiple locations is crucial for job sustainability. For example, on a particular site, if you recruit a local person as a general operative, you've invested time, money, training in that person, then the natural progression is for them to move to become part of your long-term workforce by moving them to multiple sites. Therefore, that adds to the long-term benefits that jobs and training KPIs can have. We believe that the investment in people is the key part of community benefit. We can also promote that we've got more than 70% job sustainability beyond the contract. So 70% of the jobs that we create on site sustain employment for a year past the contract period. And it's something that we can only do through the investment that the team has long term, making sure that any barriers to employment are overcome. And that might be simple things, which I'll come on to some examples. Supply chain involvement. This is something that I think is missing from a lot, and I think a lot of people don't make the investment in how they support the supply chain. We have to say that we support each part of our supply chain if they're supporting community benefit delivery. We provide free training, and that ranges from everything from on-site training through to degree programmes. We deliver a full facilitation of community benefit employment support, and which is ongoing, and that could include things like liaising with CITB and other organisations. And financial incentives. If we're asking a small subcontractor to recruit locally, then we're aware that, in particular, recruit from an unskilled, maybe no formal work experience background. If we're asking them to recruit that, then we would incentivise that and offer that financial incentive to get over what we would call the green period, that inexperienced operative period. And that means that it's risk-free for the subcontractor to be involved, and it increases the chance of long-term sustainable employment. But it really comes down to telling some of the stories, and it's not always about big, huge, extravagant gestures of donating thousands of pounds to the local community. This was a small project in Milliken Road, where a small bit of investment, the installation of 3 park benches at a cost of about £1,000 each. But this project was quite unique because we took it a step further and actually worked with a local youth employment training, Tigers Training, to use the installation of the benches as a live site-based training programme. And we did this last year in COVID. So it really tied into how we supported social spaces during the COVID outbreak, and used existing youth training programmes to add value to the overall site. This is some case studies coming up for our Harbourside project, which is our Excel framework project in Irvine Harbourside. This is a young lad, Ryan Gillen, an amazing young lad, started with us in a 2-week work placement with very, very poor literacy problems. 2 days a week, we allow Ryan to attend the Big Plus project. He's now halfway through his apprenticeship, completed his CSCS, taken driving lessons, and he's just become a homeowner. This is within a year of working with us in construction. So real kind of life-changing opportunities have been created through construction community benefit opportunities. This is a young lad, Jordan, who actually joined us a couple of years ago. Jordan joined us from an area in Glasgow where his life expectancy was in his early 50s. We recruited Jordan through a partnership programme with the WISE Group, and Jordan's now completed his apprenticeship, working towards his SVQ3 in site supervision. I have to say, Jordan had a very rough start, and he's a great example of about giving that support and that encouragement to overcome any barriers. We actually thought that we would lose Jordan through his timekeeping and punctuality the first month, but yet 2.5 years later, we still have him, and he's becoming an excellent young professional. Again, this is about the promotion of partnerships, looking at local partnerships. James, we recruited through Action for Children. James is in his second year of a joinery apprenticeship. James last year became an orphan, so he is the sole carer for his younger sister, and struggles with his mental health. But through the involvement of the community benefit team, we give him a weekly mentoring session. We go out, and that just might be a light touch, or it might be the fact that he's needing some additional support that month. And that's the crucial component about telling the story of the people. Community benefit opportunities can change lives, but they require constant evolving of the skills, the experience, and the support that some of the people that were supported into employment need. In Aidan is our recent young apprentice joiner on the Irvine Harbonside project. Aidan's 24. He never thought he would get an apprenticeship because he thought he was too old. We recruited Aidan through Ayrshire College joinery and carpentry programme, and he's now at South Lanarkshire College, just coming into his second year for joinery. And these are about creating the local partnerships, working with who is local, who's delivering employment programmes, skills programmes locally, and really trying to find people that, one, add value to us as a company, but equally, you know, it might be that we rough diamond that might need a lot of support to actually change his lives. Construction's an amazing industry. It can really change lives. But there is a lot of mentoring and a lot of support that young people need to have successful careers in it. And that's something that we've prided ourselves through the delivery of community benefit. And I'll happily take questions now. Sorry.
Thank you, Ross. It's really good hearing those stories, real life people. Andy, can I ask you to put your camera back on, my friend?
I haven't switched it off.
All right, okay, I can't see you, but we'll...
Right.
just...
No, my camera's on, Stephen.
Okay.
We're having some real technical challenges here, but it sounds like you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you, and we can see you now, Andy. So that's
great.
Can? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys. Listen, that was fantastic. I'm conscious of time, but there's a couple of really good questions in the chat I wouldn't mind asking. The first one is from Roy Morrison. Probably more for Andy, but I'm interested in Ross's views as well. Applying sanctions for non-delivery of community benefits can be a very sensitive area and probably something that's not commonly used. How would you suggest this issue could be addressed? It's
a cracking question. Thank you, Roy. I can't even begin to remotely do it justice in a couple of minutes, but it depends on the type of contracts. The first part, it goes without saying, if it's a PPP type contract, then there's probably a completely different approach to, in our case, the Women's National Facility. It's a construction contract. What I would say is my instinctive view would be that we should set contractual obligations. And I mentioned some of them in the short presentation. Ours are framed around CITB objectives. So once those objectives, assuming they are delivered, are met, anything else beyond that, in my opinion, should be things that the contractor is endeavouring to do above and beyond the contractual obligations. So you shouldn't get into a place where you're worrying about sanctions for non-delivery. Clearly, if you don't deliver the core elements of community benefits that were prescribed in the contract, then you do have an issue. My gut feeling on that is probably there is a place to apply sanctions because it's a competitive tendering process. And if somebody's pledged delivery of a range of community benefits and haven't delivered them, then I think it's only fair that one would consider what sanctions to apply in that scenario. But the focus for me should always be going above and beyond what the contract states. And all the things that emerge, and Ross was talking about some of them, as contracts are being delivered that weren't anticipated at the outset. And for me, it's about encouraging and supporting people, contractors and their supply chain, to deliver as much as they reasonably can within the context of the project. So I think we're in a happier place if we're focusing on collecting more unanticipated benefits than applying sanctions to the ones that were prescribed in the contract. And I noticed a colleague, Stuart Calderwood, had made reference to SFT. I mean, SFT do have guidance on this, and they probably and understandably will take a more contractual line on it. So SFT, I know, for example, colleague at SFT applies monetization. So there's actually a value attached to every single delivered outcome using the TOMS model. That's quite sophisticated. They're probably in a position to put fair financial value on the application of sanctions. Whether we would in a traditional construction contract, not so readily.
Okay, Ross, do you have a view on that?
I absolutely agree with Andy. If a contractor is stating that they will meet that, normally in the contractual terms, you would submit a method statement, some sort of description of the type of programs that you're going to support and deliver it. The easiest thing for a contractor is to say they'll promise the world and deliver nothing. So I absolutely agree, and I believe that the relationship between the contractor and client, if a contractor can see that you're making an effort, or perhaps recruiting people that are, you know, so far removed from the job market, the labour market, and really trying to go over and above, then that's about that relationship. So I think you have to take it in an individual base, but I always believe that sanctions should be a last resort. But a contractor should, it's their moral obligation to deliver community benefit is as important as handing somebody the keys at the end of the job, I believe. So
okay.
I think it's part of it.
Thanks, guys. Another question, a question here from Annabelle, something we'll hear repeatedly. I don't know the evidence behind it though. Do you feel that recruiting people from one local area will result in redundancies from sites completed?
No. I just said that we can promote the fact that those recruited from the local area, yes, we lose a few through natural progression, but we can promote that we've got 70% job sustainability. As I said, we're heavily involved with the Kickstart scheme at the minute, which I think is an outstanding programme. But we're investing over £3,500 in each young person that's coming in through training. Why would we invest that amount of time, money, if they weren't going to become part of either our workforce or our supply chain's workforce?
Yeah.
You know, the industry's in a poor state. We need people to come in and be part of it long term. So, I think community benefit is the way to do that.
Excellent response, Ross. Can I ask you one more question? I'm conscious, guys, we've got a number of questions that have literally come in at the end of the session. We will forward these questions on to you, and we'll ask you for a response. We'll post them on the Academy. So I guess my last question for you, I quite like this one. It's from Tanita, saying thank you for the presentation. Right? Can you give some examples of any virtual delivery of community benefits and how you've had to adapt in the light of the COVID-19 restrictions?
Yeah, Andy, you're right if I jump in
here? Yes,
Yep.
Please do, Ross.
Last year, we agreed to support foundation apprenticeships. We agreed to support 2 foundation apprenticeships on each of our larger projects. Then COVID hit, and we got approached by 3 different colleges to support foundation apprenticeships virtually. We ended up with 72 foundation apprenticeships weekly. Each student signed in a weekly session. That required huge amounts of logistic time, planning, pulling in professionals, using live sites as case studies, broadcasting live through Teams and through Twitter. People said, oh, it's lockdown, you can't get any young people out on the site, you must have an easy time, mate. Absolutely not. If anything, it increased the role. Again, that was an amazing opportunity where we thought we wouldn't be able to support any young people, and it turned out we'd even more than we anticipated. So I think, Andy, the guys at Morrison's are, very similar approach to ourselves, and I know there's other contractors. Construction's a great way of overcoming any problems. COVID was a problem. We're overcoming it. We're still supporting. We're still encouraging new talent. I think the unique thing about community benefit and good in the benefit of using companies like ourselves, like Morrison's, like others, is the team that they invest in it. It's part of what we do. So therefore we can be unique, be creative, work with partners to try and come up with some quite unique and special programs to support young people.
Okay, thank you for that, Ross. Andy, did you want to add something there?
Very quickly, I mean, Ross gave some good examples there. Very quickly, what Morrison's have done a range of things for their part virtually because they've had to in the circumstances. One good example is the undertaking to deliver a work experience programme for a range of local high schools across the Stirling area. They've done that virtually, so they've had to deliver virtual work experience programmes in the circumstances until such time that they can move back to some kind of normal method of delivery. So people find workarounds for it. It's not perfect, is it? But it's you know, it doesn't stop you doing things. It just kind of limits the scope of how you can do it. So,
guys, that was fantastic, inspirational. Really good to see those real examples and hear those tangible stories. I'm conscious I am now physically eating into your lunch times. The questions haven't stopped since you stopped talking. So there's a number of questions that'll be winging its way towards you. Also the comments about how much people have enjoyed your presentations today. So thank you very much to both of you. Really good. And again, thanks to our audience for participating, and thanks again for those questions. Again, we'll get answers to you. The next session is local supplier development, which will run from 2 p.m. to 2:30. And again, if you can join us 5-10 minutes early, that would be great. Guys, thank you again. That was fantastic.
Thanks very much.